So hello, John, how are you?
Very well, thank you, Macarena.
I'm very glad and honored to have you here in CPTED Talks. Thank you for being our guest today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
I will start reading your long biography, John, because you have a very interesting career spreading the CPTED word there in your country, in your region. And then we will start with the interview, if it is okay for you.
That's fine.
So perfect, John. John Goldsworthy, ICA Director and Board Member, Australia. John served in the Queensland Police Service Crime Prevention Unit for over 10 years, and as the team leader, personal safety and property security was one of the pioneers of the concept in Australia, introducing CPTED to government, community and industry bodies. He has the Queensland Police Service CPTED subject matter expert for major infrastructure projects and a regular media spokesperson on crime prevention issues. His policing career included first response policing, criminal investigation, close personal protection, intelligence, counterterrorism, internal investigation, crime prevention, major event planning, aviation and maritime operations. Wow, police development and project management. Incredible. He received a Queensland Police Service Award for Excellence in Crime Prevention for introducing tourist-oriented policing to the state in partnership with Tourism Queensland. John designs and facilitates crime prevention through environmental design workshops and presentations for government, urban design, planning, and allied professionals in the Asia-Pacific region on behalf of the International Security Management and Crime Prevention Institute, following a highly decorated career over 40 years in the Queensland Police Service, Australia. He recently authored featured journal articles on CPTED for Neighbourhood Watch Australasia and Australian Parks and Leisure. He was elected as director on the International CPTED Association Board of Directors in 2019, and so on. Your biography is so long, John, so we will start talking because it's a very incredible career. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Macarena. I sometimes wonder where the 40 years went.
Yeah, me too. So we will start with the first question, John. How did you start in CPTED? Can you tell us the story, please?
Yes, certainly, Macarena. It's been a long journey. It was back in the mid-1990s. A gentleman called Tim Crow, who many of us who have studied CPTED would know. Tim came out to Australia, and I still recall the day. Actually, he did a presentation in the conference room at police headquarters in Brisbane to a range of police officers, but also including people such as myself who were then still actively working in the crime prevention area. And he talked about this strange thing called CPTED. We'd never heard of this unusual thing before. And really, the truth and the benefit in CPTED to myself and my colleagues was just so self-evident. You know, it seems so simple, but yet so effective and easily understood. And at that time, I'd like to say that, you know, in the 10 years that I had at the Crime Prevention Unit, one part of my career, I call that very much the golden years of my policing career, in that we had a number of officers there. We were all working in different areas of crime prevention, because crime prevention, as we know, is quite a complex area, all together in different facets of crime prevention. And we were fortunate that if we put forward an idea that seemed, as we say, half plausible, that, you know, if there was seen to be some benefit in this concept, we were given the opportunity and the backing and the support to move forward and see where it would take us. And CPTED was one of those things. And so we started to learn and develop our skills around CPTED. And one of the things that I decided to do, identify very early, was to look for a partner. Because, you know, we're the police service, crime prevention, as we said then, and is a community responsibility. So we needed partners to work with. And one of the early partners was local government. So in Australia, we have federal, state, local government. The local government is the town, the city, the municipality type lower level government, closer to the people, and identified local government as a partner. So probably like many police agencies throughout the world, don't have a huge budget. So if we can get somebody else to spend their money, it's a great idea. So identify local government as a partner and sort out people within various local government agencies in my state. And they would actually invite us to come and run a workshop. So when I would say to my inspector, boss, we've been invited, we have to go. And
that's great.
So we would convince the people what a great idea it was for them to run a CPTED workshop. And very, very simple in those days. What I would do, one of my colleagues and myself, we would travel Queensland. Australia is a large country. Queensland, our state police service, very, very large state. We would travel to the area, ideally the day before. And look, I think back to how simple life was then. I think we probably had one of the first digital cameras in the Queensland Police Service.
Imagine, completely different.
Oh, it is. And what we would do is we would go to a location the day before. We would go and take digital photos of different examples that we could find of CPTED strategies and principles in that local area. Wouldn't get them all, of course, but just to add a local flavour to the presentation. And then that evening, with our very, very low-powered laptop computer, we would refine our PowerPoint presentation. And then the next day, with the assembled people from the council with our PowerPoint presentation, we would amaze the audience by showing them photographs of their local environment and then talk about CPTED and how it related to their local context.
That's very wise. And it's a great strategy. What you did, it's a great strategy because they recognize the photos, the pictures.
Yes, yes. And I'm talking about a time when, I don't know what it was like in your country, you'd take a 35mm film and then you'd put it in at the chemist, and in a week later you'd get your photographs back. So digital just was magic. And as we said, is very much based around the context. So it was really wonderful to talk about different aspects of CPTED, but then yet show them a photograph. It seems so simple, and it was simple, but in those days, quite a revolution, shall I say?
I imagine.
I had the opportunity to present to an Australian Institute of Criminology conference in Melbourne. I was invited to speak about how the Queensland Police Service was promoting crime prevention through environmental design. Great days.
Great. And nice story, John. And connecting with the story, can you explain a little to the audience, because this video will be seen in all the ICA network in the global scale. Can you explain a little to our audience, how is the crime context in Australia?
Look, Australia is a developed country, obviously, very, very large land area, but a relatively small population. I think, if I'm not mistaken, around about the 26 million people. So land mass, not a major population, and the population is surprisingly urbanised. The population in Australia tends to be coastal in the major capital city areas. So look, Australia has a proud tradition, I suppose, of being in the country and the wide open spaces, and there certainly are many, many small towns and localities, but Australia tends to be sort of somewhat quite heavily urbanised in its community. We face the problems that everybody else in the world faces. in our own context, in the big cities, in the small towns, in the regional cities, we have crime. Fortunately, I don't believe that we have violent crime to the extent in some countries. Certainly, it is a problem in some areas, but not to the extent of other places. So, look, it is, as with CPTED, it's very, very much based on context. What actually problem in certain areas.
So you think CPTED was and is a very useful tool for the Australian crime problem, because it's not, we are not talking about violent crimes, it's more opportunistic crime.
Yes, and certainly, look, we certainly do have instances of violent crime, which are very, very, very bad and very tragic, and that happens everywhere. Look, CPTED is as relevant today as it was started back in the 90s. As we know, CPTED continued to change and modify and evolve to meet the threats, right up to terrorism. It's depending upon the issue we're looking to deal with. And as I say, CPTED is part of the jigsaw puzzle. CPTED is a very important crime prevention concept. However, it is frequently misunderstood and basically misunderstood, and in some cases not applied correctly as a result. So we have to be on our guard. We can never say that the job is ever done when we talk about promoting CPTED to our community.
Completely agree. And in that sense, John, the work of training people to transfer in a very proper way the methodology, what do you think about that? It's so relevant to apply, to teach others with certified courses?
Yes, it is. It's, as I said, we can never say that the message has been fully delivered or fully understood. So the challenge to those of us who work in this field is to continue to be out there constantly spreading the word of CPTED. I do a lot of work with government, state and local government agencies and professional bodies. And CPTED certainly is more known about now than it was in the early days when it was an unknown concept. I think that there's a great thirst for knowledge about CPTED. I honestly believe that. I say to the professional groups that I talk to, they are the people who make the magic happen on the streets, the town planners, the urban designers, the landscape. My job is to get them to look at their professional decisions through the lens of community safety and crime prevention, so that they apply the knowledge, but they're looking at how they do things through the lens of community safety, crime prevention. And that's the approach that I take. And it's a great journey to go on with people and start talking about what their skill sets are, and just little things that they can do with a little bit of knowledge that I can impart, how to make the place safer.
Yeah, completely agree. So sometimes it's just a little amount of knowledge with a high impact. It changes much the environment.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And, people in this space, as I say, it's always the constant challenge to be out there, because there are so many conflicting and impacting priorities that different professions face. And I find that even within, say, for example, large organisations like a city council or a town council, all these different professions working together, and they're all part of the one team, but sometimes they think they're all heading in the one direction, but sometimes, they're unaware of the issues impacting on their partners, and things can die. But the common thing, of course, is safety, because at the end of the day, the place is not safe. We have nothing, do we? It can be beautiful, it can be wonderful, but if it's not safe, that's a problem.
Yeah, and I want to move you to another arena or story, because the CPTED story in Australia has been very, very, very relevant for ICA, because our past international president was Tony Lake. He did great, a great master, a great leader, and he is from Australia and also from the police force. So you, as group, as accepted practitioners from the Australasia region, you did so well. Can you explain us a little, how did you evolve as a group establishing the Australian chapter, please?
Yes, certainly. Well, look, Tony Lake is a great friend and a good colleague. Tony actually was at the Crime Prevention Unit when I was there. Our paths certainly crossed within the crime prevention area, and Tony actually was one of the first people to actually do a CPTED presentation days, and we obviously kept closely in touch professionally. And then when I retired, as everybody sometimes has to do, retired from the police service, Tony and I reacquainted our professional relationship. But certainly back in the early days, we became members of the International CPTED Association, and I even recall that back in 2000, Rick Draper, another person who was very involved with CPTED and the ICA back in those days, actually, Rick and I went to the United States and we put in a bid for, I think it would have been then the very first ICA international conference to come to Australia. Which I think was 2001, the latter part of 2001. So CPTED in Australia has a very, very long history. In this part of the world, there's lots of interest. You know, our particular very close part, our colleagues in New Zealand as well. We have, as you know, we have wonderful colleagues in New Zealand, and of course now into Asia, towards India and other parts of the world. Yeah. We're growing very much.
I want to ask you a more actual question. How did CPTED adapt to the COVID crisis now? What is happening with the COVID crisis there in Australia?
Well, certainly a global problem. It certainly is a global problem. In Australia, fortunately, we haven't had some of the major issues. Whilst it's been a major impact on our community and our society, Australia, our states and territories, sitting under our federal government, deal with the health issues and other impacts around COVID-19. Different responses in different states. In the state of Victoria, which where I now live, we have had quite a large degree of COVID-19 in comparison to some of the other states. So we currently have some very strict controls around movement and gathering. In Melbourne, the capital city, there's currently a curfew at night time, apart for very specific reasons. So one of the challenges, certainly in relation to CPTED in the current environment, is the use of space, you know, the use of public space where, you know, before people were using it, now people are not using those things as much. So they have the opportunity to see what's going on. And of course, police agencies now, they're very, very heavily committed in a lot of issues around COVID-19 in terms of border control and things like that. So that can be a challenge, obviously. So people are working together, different government agencies, local government working together to see, well, what can we do? How do we identify the problems we're now facing? How has the world changed? The world has changed, hasn't it? So, you know, it's now more than ever, working in partnership together is very, very important.
Yeah, it's very challenging. And as you said, collaborative efforts are very needed.
Absolutely, absolutely.
John, and why will you recommend to our audience to become an active ICA member?
Oh, look, I certainly would recommend that. It's as I say to people, joining the ICA is the key to the world of knowledge of CPTED. You know, the concept's been around for a long time now. There's an enormous body of information. There's so many people of great knowledge and goodwill who operate in the field in different parts of the world, and the ability to actually tap into that knowledge and how CPTED has been applied in their local context, and to understand how different aspects can be drawn back to your local environment and how that can help your area. So I certainly do recommend it. It's something that whenever I have the opportunity to talk to groups of people, it's something that I definitely promote. Join the ICA.
Yes, we are a big family, a big CPTED global family.
Absolutely, and growing, and growing.
Yes, and growing, you're right. And as closing remarks, John, what you can say to the audience, to highlight an idea, for example?
Oh, what can I say? Look, never give up. You know, crime and crime prevention, or crime particularly to people, can be seen to be this enormous problem that, you know, individuals, you know, feel powerless about, but everybody has a role. You know, as I say, in our particular case, CPTED is part of the jigsaw puzzle. It's one of those important things that needs to be recognised and applied in its local context, in concert with other knowledge. And, you know, as we know, CPTED is also very much about community cohesion and community building. So, you know, it's a broad concept. It's very, very important.
Yeah, it's very integral and holistic. So thank you so much, John, for your nice interview, so relevant information that you share with the audience. Thank you so much, John.
It's an absolute pleasure, and I look to continue the work.
Of course, and stay safe. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye all.